Welcome into the DNVR Broncos podcast on this terrific Tuesday. I'm your host, Zach Stevens, joined by my man, Andrew Mason. Before we hop into the show, gotta tell you about our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver Online, because over at MSU Denver Online, you can get an education while continuing to live your life, which is so important for the vast majority of people out there that want to get a degree, but they also have to work while doing it, and MSU Denver has done this for many years. Before the pandemic, they mastered this art, so there's no better place to turn than over at MSU Denver Online. So make sure to check out all of the classes and opportunities they have over at MSU Denver Online. And one more thing, if you guys are tuning in live, we really appreciate that. Hit us with a thumbs up over on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter, flip over to YouTube. That's where the chat really pops. That's where it's a better stream, and that's where we get your comments the best. So jump over to YouTube and hit us with a thumbs up, please. We'd really appreciate it. My boy, Mace, what is going on, my friend?
Not much. The chat really pops. I could think of other words to describe how the chat sometimes gets on YouTube. True. Look, and I will admit, I'm one person. I don't read comment sections. I don't read YouTube comments because I lose my faith in humanity sometimes. like speaking of faith in humanity, did you see that thing from Chicago about how Matt Nagy's son was playing in a high school football game and students for the opposing school were chanting "Fire Nagy" at Nagy's son?
Yeah, that's pretty terrible.
That's awful.
It's a low blow.
Where are we as a society right now?
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways we can talk about that. But anyway, let's pick it back up. Let's be positive. We're going to talk about core players, and two of them are Courtland, Sutton, and Tim Patrick. We'll get into more of the core players later. But Zach, you weren't on the podcast yesterday, so I want to ask you, how do you feel about these twin re-signings of Sutton and Tim Patrick?
Mixed emotions, and I'll just get the let's just start with the positive. And Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, very good players. We know that, and the Broncos actually got good value on signing both of them for $25 million a year combined. Mm-hmm. I also like the way that the news is coming out about how Tim Patrick's deal is not backloaded. What did we constantly see in the John Elway era? We saw these backloaded contracts when the Broncos had salary cap space right away, but they would backload them, and then it would put them in a weird spot at times. I love that Tim Patrick's numbers are $9 million next year, $9 million the year after that, and $10 million the year after that. I love that, the way that breaks down. So in terms of the contracts, good value. I like that. But Mace, you said twin receivers. I don't like that. And that's not something that I can turn my back on. I've been saying it ever since they signed Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. That's not a way to build a football team. Now, if you have a great quarterback, sure, you can give a great quarterback two great wide receivers and pay them a lot, and then that'll be successful. You know what you can also do when you have a great quarterback, Mace? You can give them the John Does of the world, and they turn them into Pro Bowl receivers. So I don't need to hear that, the Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson needs these two guys in order to come here. Look what Russell Wilson has right now in Seattle. He has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He has really good receivers. Look what Aaron Rodgers has. He has one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Javonte Adams. Those guys wouldn't be leaving their places because they don't have receivers and because they're looking for better receivers. No, they have all the receivers they need. And you're telling me that, let's say the Broncos, we knew that the Broncos weren't going to lose Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, right, Mace? I mean, we knew they were going to keep one of those guys around.
Yeah, and probably both, because you had the franchise tag in your back pocket.
Exactly.
If they don't get it done with Sutton, and I still think that was probably the more logical play, is to tag him for 1 year.
Sure, and that just buys you, because right now you've seen Courtland Sutton for 10 games coming off the ACL. I was a little surprised to see that after they got Tim Patrick done, they got Courtland done so quick. But back to what it means for the quarterbacks, the Broncos weren't losing Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton. You're going to tell me that Russell Wilson isn't going to come here because the wide receiving core is Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Then you also have Noah Fant, Alberto, and Javonte Williams, and vice versa for Aaron Rodgers. No, I don't buy that one bit. This wide receiving group was already attractive enough for one of these quarterbacks. So I do believe George Paton when he was asked yesterday, and he said that signing these deals is not to make a run at one of these quarterbacks. It's just setting your team up to have good players. And if you can find good value in players, it makes sense to keep them. So I'm going back and forth here on why it's good, why it's bad. And
there's a lot to get off your chest here, clearly.
Exactly. There is a lot to get off my chest. And speaking of value, Mace, one thing that does concern me, I like getting good players at good value. And that's what the Broncos did with both of these guys. But where the Broncos have signed their biggest deals now with this year with Tim Patrick, with Courtland Sutton, and now with Justin Simmons, those are the three biggest deals the Broncos have made this year. They're all at not very valuable positions. The wide receiver position, the most dependent position on the field. Safety position, you love to have good safeties, but at what cost? It's crazy that Seattle gave up 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams and paid him tons of money.
Seattle thinks differently in the rest of the league, which is part of why they're in the state they are right now.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So the Broncos are getting value, but also paying guys at positions that aren't very valuable. And yes, the Broncos are in a good cap situation compared to the rest of the team, but it doesn't mean that they can just go out and give every single position tons of money. I don't like where the money's going right now, even though they have a lot. So great to get good value players, great to get good players, and I just don't like everything about it.
It's fair. Now, here's the thing. If you get a great quarterback, like you mentioned, First of all, if you're trying to make yourself attractive, I think the receivers matter, but I also think the coaches matter.
Right.
And I think maybe the coach and the offensive scheme are going to be more important if you're going to try to make yourself attractive to Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson saying, yeah, I'll accept the trade there. One thing, though, let's say, I think plan A is veteran quarterback, top-level veteran.
I think that would be plan A for everyone, yeah.
Plan B is the draft, right?
I hope so.
Because I don't, we were talking about this before the show. I don't want to see big money for a second or third tier quarterback. To me, if you can get Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, great. If you can get any of these other guys, I know Ryan and I talked a lot about Kirk Cousins yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
No thanks. No thanks.
And Kirk Cousins is the best of the second tier right there, and absolutely no thanks. A guy that scares the crap out of me, Mace, and we talked about just before the show, Matt Ryan, that scares the living daylights out of me. I don't want anything to do with that.
For those guys,
exactly.
That is too much. That's not enough juice for the squeeze. So you're better off getting the cost-controlled quarterback and then say in the draft, yeah, you're hoping that he hits, but if you have a cost-controlled guy, you can give him plenty of weapons. And then I think the other element of a cost-controlled quarterback is you fortify the offensive line. Let's say that George Paton decides, I love Matt Corral. We're going to get Matt Corral one way or the other out of this draft. Great. If you have a conviction on him, do it. But then I think the next set of moves beyond this, taking advantage of the cost-controlled window, is to upgrade the offensive line a little bit. All respect to Lloyd Cushenberry, but if you bring in a young quarterback, I want the best veteran center that you can find.
Without a doubt.
To help that young quarterback out. I want to stop the revolving door at right tackle and have a long-term solution. Yep. I think Quinn Miners is going to be a long-term solution on the interior, and Garrett Bowles, he's a core guy, as we'll get into, but that's what I want to see if they go young quarterback. So then you say, okay, we gave you a running back, and Javonte Williams is really effective. We gave you the protection up front, and we gave you a bunch of targets who, by the way, Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, they're going to be year 5 next year. So for a young quarterback, they are the experienced, seasoned hands who ought to be able to help a young guy along. They're not 2018, 2019 Tim and Courtland. They're mature veterans who should be able to guide a young guy.
100%. And Mace, that's why I don't buy too much into the fact that these are moves in order to go get yourself that veteran, to convince Aaron Rodgers to come here. Again, I think those guys are coming to Denver, whether it's they have Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, or whether they just have one of those guys, because you can't forget about Jerry, Jeudy, and the rest of the weapons the Broncos have. So I don't buy too much into that. But Mace, I think you make a good point that this team isn't just a quarterback away. What now? If they get Aaron Rodgers, they're really going to be much better. But if they get a rookie and go that rookie route, and even if it's still a veteran, there's other spots that this team needs to work on greatly. Right now, the Broncos are set at about $79 million in cap space, according to Spot Track. You take about, let's just say, $25 million in cap space away for Courtland and Tim, although we don't know exactly Courtland's numbers
Tim's
yet.
Is 9.25.
Exactly. So let's just assume that it's right around there as well. So now the Broncos are down to $55 million. Let's say you go and get Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. What's that going to be? $35 million against your cap?
Maybe 40.
Maybe 40? Okay, you're at 15 or 20 million.
And then you got to pay your draft picks. Although
exactly.
You're going to be sacrificing a lot of draft capital to get Wilson or Rodgers. If you trade for Wilson or Rodgers, you will not have a first-round pick for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And you may only have one second-round pick of the 3 you have for the next 2 years.
Exactly. So Mace, that's my point about why the Broncos, they have a lot of money, but after these moves, and you're feeling great about where you are because you have Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, but you have $15 to $20 million, and then you're right, you need to save probably only $5 million for your draft space, and then that's not addressing anything else.
You have to plug every hole with a veteran.
Yeah,
that you have, right? And because you can't rely on a third or fourth round pick to provide immediate help,
with
right?
cheap veterans too. At that point, now you probably will get some cap manipulation going on.
You will get some discounts.
You will get some discounts, but we're not talking the Broncos having $40 million to spend that they can spend on and get 6 starters. You're talking about $15 to $20 million that maybe they can get 2 to 3 starters. So that's just what I mean about. I like Courtland and Tim. I like keeping them, but you are taking $10 to $15 million a year away from positions that are probably more valuable, starting on the inside, building out. And what they did with their top 3 highest paid moves this season is they went outside going in. So it's not against Tim or Courtland.
And the other thing, I mean, think of what we've seen at right tackle. The Broncos have kind of looked for year-to-year solutions at right tackle, right?
Yep.
Jared Valdir comes in. DeMar Dotson for 2020. This year, Bobby Massey. Now, those are fine if you don't have many of them. But you are potentially looking at 4 or 5 spots being one-year solutions. Now, if you've got a great quarterback, you can make that work. I mean, think back to when Peyton Manning was in Denver and how you'd see a Keith Brooking here, a Dan Copen there. There were a bunch of one-year solutions up and down the roster that you were able to function with because you had Peyton Manning. But that's just something that you will have to prepare yourself for if that's where you're going, is that if you have all the cap room taken up by trading for a quarterback, by acquiring that contract, and then you're sacrificing draft capital, for a couple of years you're going to be trying to kind of basically duct tape and spackle some things.
Right.
And also hoping that this draft class, which has looked very good to this point, that all of those guys that have flashed are going to be long-term hits, and then we're not having the conversations a couple of years down the line that we've had this year about, say, Dalton Reisner and Noah Fant not building off of the promise they showed early.
Yeah, exactly. And now, Mace, let's say it is a rookie quarterback. Those $35-40 million that vanished because you spent it on a veteran quarterback, now that's money that you can spend. And now paying 2 wide receivers makes a lot more sense because also, like you said, those guys are veteran guys now. Jeudy is going to take that step in his 3rd year of being more of a veteran, but you're not relying on Jeudy to be the vet of the room like you were Courtland Sutton a couple of years ago. You have that veteran leadership in that wide receiver room. It should really help. And since you're not spending that money, you can spend it on that defensive line. You can spend it inside linebacker. You can spend it on the offensive line. So to me, I would think that these moves would be pointing more toward a rookie, but of course, that doesn't mean that if Aaron Rodgers is available and Russell Wilson is available that you're going to say no. Of course not. You're absolutely going to go that route.
I just hope they say no to a Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins.
Please.
If they can't get those guys and go with a young guy. By the way, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy. I think it's interesting to look at Jeudy. I touched on this in my article last night at his long-term contract situation. Now, we have learned about Tim Patrick's year-to-year cap hit. That's 9.25 each of the first 2 years. Now, what we don't know yet is the percentage of that is guaranteed. And that's why it's really interesting because Tim Patrick has an $18.5 million guarantee. Well, if you take the first 2 years of salaries on Tim Patrick's contract, 925, that's 18.5.
Yep.
So are they front-loading the guarantee? If that is the case, that is really interesting in terms of long-term planning. Ditto for Courtland Sutton, because 34.9 is guaranteed, because Jerry Jeudy has his fifth-year option coming up in what would be Tim Patrick's third year of the contract, and he would get a new contract potentially in what would be Courtland Sutton's fourth year. And are these contracts structured to where even though they say 3 and 4 years, they're 2 and 3 years? Because 100%. By the way, if Jerry Jeudy gets the fifth-year option, if he's made the Pro Bowl once, that transition, that fifth-year option is the equivalent of the transition tag at his position, which is likely going to be $17 to $18 million for Jerry Jeudy in 2024. And unless he bombs, I think he's going to get that fifth-year option. So you can kind of see some of the planning in place budget-wise to where the baton of a big contract gets handed to Jerry Jeudy in the mid-2020s as well.
Without a doubt. And it's an excellent point, Mace, that it's setting up to where they don't have to choose whether or not to keep Jerry Jeudy. They can absolutely keep Jerry Jeudy as well. And it's just going to be, are they going to be paying a third wide receiver $10 million when you're paying a second wide receiver $15 million and a number one wide receiver $18 million potentially at that point? Yes, the salary cap is going to go up, but that's still going to be a ton of money dished out to wide receivers. And really quick, speaking of Tim Patrick, happy birthday, Tim. What a week it has been for him.
Life-changing money, 18.5 guaranteed.
Yes, and I believe
what a birthday gift.
I believe he gets $15 million. Wait, let me check this because I have it right here. I believe Tim Patrick gets a huge payday in just a couple of days. According to Ryan O'Halloran, he gets $3 million within the next 15 days. So not too bad. Not too bad way to celebrate a birthday.
And by the way, O'Halloran has the cap hits for Courtland Sutton on his contract, 13.2 next year.
Okay.
And so that means the two of them are combined are combined at $21.45 million next year. Sutton's cap hit goes up to $15.23 million in 23, down to $14.23 in 24, and $14.73 in 25. Again, kind of the big thing we'll learn in due time how the guarantee of 34.9 is spread out, but that probably leads to a fourth year that you could get out from for fairly minimal dead money charge.
Yep. And
if Tim Patrick's is structured the same way, well, then you can see all the planning in place to get Jerry Jeudy in when it's time for his big payday as well.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So George Paton locking these two guys up on essentially 2 and 2.5 year deals.
It's, you know what? And here's the thing. It's what John Elway did at one point. We criticized Elway earlier in the show for kind of putting things on a credit card. Do you remember in the Peyton Manning era, we heard the words pay-as-you-go an awful lot.
Yep, he did that when it was successful during Peyton Manning. He did it, and then after, he started doing backloading.
Yeah, they lost the plot after Peyton left. I'm glad to see the Broncos get back to more of a pay-as-you-go structure.
Yep, I like that too.
The Broncos, it was funny, the first 5 years or so, 5-6 years of John Elway, were regarded as one of the best teams in terms of managing contracts and managing the cap.
Yep.
And then they got away from them. Bad commitments, bad contracts.
Yep.
So it's good to see, hopefully, them getting on the right path here.
Yeah, it really does. And Mace, I want to talk about some more core players that the Broncos aren't going to move on from, just like they did with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. But first, I want to tell you guys about why we're giving thanks, and it's for DraftKings. They are so thankful this Thanksgiving that they want to give you $100 in free bets. And here's what you do to get $100 in free bets. For new customers, if you bet $1 on any Thanksgiving game, there's 3 of them this week, and any team in that game scores a point, you get $100 in free bets, which you can use right away. So maybe you want to get in on that Thursday night action, Bills and Saints, and you want $100 of free money to use. Well, bet on either the Bears or the Lions to score in that 10 a.m. game on Thursday. If any team scores a point there, you get $100 in free bets. No better way to start off your Thanksgiving than $100 in free bets. It's hard to believe that the game is going to go 0-0 into overtime and end with a 0-0 tie. So I think you're pretty
Not
safe
for Brian's
doing that.
Lions, Browns or Bears Lions, I should say.
That is true.
I messed up, but Bears Lions, the Tim Boyle, Andy Dalton quarterback duel.
Yikes. Big time.
America needs to turn this game off.
Yes.
Look, the NFL believes they can put any game on Thanksgiving and people will watch, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, it's Detroit every year. And Detroit every year is terrible. Watch the parade. Watch the dog show. Watch college basketball. Just something else. But place a bet on DraftKings.
Yeah, exactly. Place a bet on DraftKings because even though it's a terrible game, there will be points scored to get that $100 in free bets. So head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get that $1 to $100 promo that they've got going on this week. And of course, DraftKings is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. And may speaking of DraftKings and speaking of that game on Thursday, I want to get into my DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week, and it is with that game. It's with the first game this week. The Bears with Andy Dalton are going into Detroit to play the Jared Goff-less, winless Lions. Come on. I mean, Andy Dalton is being so disrespected by this line. The Bears, 3-point favorites. They're on the road. Sure, I get it. But Mace, this is Andy Dalton, who used to be a good quarterback. He's a really good backup quarterback. How good is the Lions backup? What's it? I don't even know his name. You just said it.
Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle,
who in his two combined college stints, he transferred, I believe, had something on the lines of 12 touchdowns and 26 picks.
There you go.
How does
in college?
This guy, yes. How does this guy get a shot?
Are you kidding?
What's going on in Detroit?
And I can't even get a shot? What is this, NFL?
You'd be better off with Kyle Sloter.
You would.
Seriously,
you
bring
really
back Sloter rather than make us watch Tim Boyle again, who, by the way, he had... Did you see his stat line?
On Sunday?
On Sunday?
Oh, I can't even imagine. I mean, they only lost to the Browns by 3, but it was not because of Tim Boyle. They only put up 10 points.
They only put up 10 points. They were behind. This is impossible. 15 of 23 for 77 yards?
Tim Boyle says, you think it's impossible? Hold my beer.
I mean, he literally doesn't even... He's literally not even averaging 3.5 yards an attempt.
This game, DraftKings is also telling you that this is a terrible game to bet on. Mace, the over-under, or not to bet on, but to watch. The over-under is 41.5. I mean, this is something you see in like freshman year football, where DraftKings just has no confidence in either quarterbacks coming out of 8th grade, and this is what you're seeing here. But I love. Oh, the line already moved from about 30 minutes ago. It was at 3. Now it's at 3.5. So get in on that before it keeps going up.
Yeah, get in on that, but man, woof. All right, we're gonna do a soccer bet today.
Love it. Thanksgiving soccer.
We're gonna do pre-Thanksgiving. We got some Champions League action going on, and okay, maybe I might be falling for what appears to be easy money here, but you've got Man United in total chaos right now. They're playing in the Champions League at Villarreal. Villarreal 31-20 odds to straight up win. I'm taking that right now. United can't seem to get out of its own way. They just sacked manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They're basically in a transition period. That doesn't usually bode well for going on the road in Europe playing a big Champions League tie. So I'm going to take Villarreal to win straight up today.
I love it. You said 30 to 21 odds?
31 to 20.
All right, I'm at 31 to 20. That's about plus 155
yes.
from everyone in the different odds out there. I'm starting to understand these odds, Mace. I like it.
Maybe, and I'm starting to understand 155, so maybe we're going to find eventually we're going to find a happy medium here. And, of course, if you want to find just a happy medium of sports coverage, actually, you got to finish your DraftKings read, right?
I did. We're done.
Oh, you already got the
Absolutely.
disclaimer in.
Yep.
Okay, all right. I was thinking about
so smooth.
I was thinking about my Champions League pick. So you want to come on down the DNVR bar. We got Wi-Fi here to watch all the games, so you can get on your DraftKings app while you're here at the DNVR bar, place bets during the match. You can during the game, whatever. You can watch all sports games involving Colorado teams here at the DNVR bar. We're going to get the sound, so you go to a sports bar somewhere else, and they're going to be playing music. They're going to be doing something else, maybe doing trivia. Nothing wrong with trivia night, but you want to watch the game. You want to hear what's going on. So the DNVR bar, you'll hear the sound when you come watch the Avs, when you come watch the Nuggets, when you come see the Buffs and the CSU Rams. And so you come on down the DNVR bar, and if you're a DNVR member, you're going to get a price break. Of course, you're going to get the big beer for the price of a small beer. You're also going to get a price break on our tailgates because we've got another tailgate coming up against the Chargers this week. And look, maybe you're down about the Broncos. I get it. That last game against Philadelphia was terrible. But have you seen the weather forecast for this week?
Woo, another beauty.
Yes, we're talking about mid to upper 60s, sunshine, absolutely perfect weather, a perfect day to be outside. Maybe you're down in the Broncos, but you want to just have some fun. Come on down to the tailgate that we'll have starting in the morning with all the sexy pizza you can eat, all the Breck brews you can drink. And if you are a DNVR member, it's only $20 to come to that tailgate. So check it out. You can get the tickets at thednvr.com if you're a member. If you're not a member, hey, come on down for $25 and you can get all the pizza and all the beer that you want. A great way to enjoy a beautiful day at the pregame tailgate, which, by the way, you can find at 18th and Federal. It's right behind Sports Fan. It's got a great view of the stadium, and it's going to be a beautiful day. So even if you don't go to the game, why don't you come on down to the tailgate? You'll have a good time. We guarantee it.
Absolutely. We do guarantee that. And something else we guarantee is working at Ball is a fantastic place to start your career, continue your career, switch industries. And right now they're hiring on their production line. And guys, for their production technician job, they're starting their wages at $27, $39 per hour with potential increases for every 6, 12, 18 months on the job. And it offers exposure to a lot of other manufacturing positions at their plant. So not only can you get opportunities for advancement with your pay, but you can also get opportunities to move around within the company. And this is a company that you're going to want to stay at for a long time because not only do they have great benefits, including 401k for retirement, stock purchase ownership, and even annual bonuses, but they're a great place to work. Their Culture of Belonging Index received a perfect score, 100, meaning that they are a fantastic place to work with fantastic pay as well. So if you want a job over at Ball to be a production technician, go to jobs.ball.com and search for Golden. That's jobs.ball.com and search for Golden. All right, Mace, let's hop into this conversation about who are other players, core players that the Broncos must keep, because we talked to George Paton yesterday. And Mace, one of the things that George Paton didn't say yesterday was, boy, Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton are just such good wide receivers that we couldn't let them leave. What they do on the football field is too valuable and nothing else matters. No, in fact, we didn't hear George Paton harp on these guys on exactly what they bring to the football field, and that's exactly why they kept them. What George Paton harped on was obviously they're good football players. We all know they're good football players. But what George Paton really harped on that made them core players, that made them guys that George Paton said he could not see the Broncos not re-signing him, what gave them all of that added value to the team was who they are as people and players off the field, how they work out, how they approach the game and the workout and their job with such a positive attitude in the weight room, in the locker room, during rehab. And that was something that we know George Paton has liked, but he made it extremely clear that he really valued that. So I want to talk about who else are the Broncos core players that we kind of view George Paton viewing in a similar light of the Broncos aren't going to let go. They're not going to let them leave. We know a few already. We know Justin Simmons, obviously because of the contract, Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, probably say the same about Shelby Harris as well from the contract.
Definitely more of a leader type than someone who's going to be in the Pro Bowl, but yes.
Right.
And they're valuing leadership with someone like Shelby Harris. And Shelby's one of those guys that I think in the wake of Von Miller being traded is having and will have a more forceful voice in the locker room.
I think so. So I think those are four guys that you start with. And what's interesting about this is I don't think you just look at guys that have long-term deals here, because Garrett Bowles, I'm not ready to put him in that court. Now, he is for the next 2 years because of his contract. But remember, George Paton did not give Garrett Bowles that contract. So who are other guys that George Paton views as core guys? So you can look at more than just on-the-field production.
Yeah, we're going to start finding out some of them, I think, in the next 12 months or so. I think, for example, we will probably learn if he regards Noah Fant as a core player by the spring.
We will, with that fifth-year option.
If he gets the fifth-year option, I think that's going to say core player.
And also, kind of similar, really quick on that, Mace, really similar with Garrett Bowles, George Paton did not draft Noah Fant.
Right.
So he has not put his stamp of approval on him.
He has not, but at the same time, he didn't draft Courtland Sutton, he didn't draft Tim Patrick. So
but he signed those guys.
Right,
now.
he's signed them, but he's shown a willingness to embrace the people that he inherited, and part of that is, look, he does have John Elway still in the building most days right now.
He was there yesterday.
Yes, and the bottom line is when John Elway is still there as president of football operations, probably for another 7 months or so.
Right. I was gonna say he's got this year.
Yeah, he's got that contract has to expire. It may well dovetail with new ownership, but as long as John Elway is still there, he's going to ask his input. And you know what? Even if John Elway is no longer there on a most days basis, doesn't have an office at Dove Valley on the other side of this, I think Paton is still going to call John Elway and ask about the guys that he drafted.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't know if that's not the case. Yeah. There's a reason that George Paton was brought here, Mace.
There's a reason he was brought here, but he also has a respect for John Elway.
Yeah, and
there's going to be and there's going to be some of that. I don't want to use the term paying tribute, but I think he's going to at least kind of pick up the phone.
Well, that's what he admitted to Peter King, was that a reason that he didn't want to draft a quarterback because he wanted to see John Elway's guy, a.k.a. Drew Lock, get a shot and get a legitimate shot, and that's the most concerning thing that I've heard from George Paton since he became general manager.
So in terms of guys that have been drafted recently, you say, okay, who could be core guys? We're going to learn about Noah Fant in the next 6 months or so.
So is he now, though, would you say?
I'd say he's got to show more.
I would say yes. So that's a no, and I would say no.
But I put there are guys that I have asterisks by. They can show that they're core guys, but they're not there yet.
So
Noah Fant has the asterisk by his name.
Really quick, I think that asterisk is a fair part. We're not saying these guys can't become it, but right now is no. But he
they can be.
Sure, can.
Draymond Jones can be.
Is he now?
But he's not there yet.
He's not there yet. Everyone expected him to be there right about now, midway through the season. Everyone expected to see it, but he's not there.
He's not there at this point. It's funny. I actually feel more certain about two younger players as core guys than Draymond Jones and Noah Fant. And
me too.
You probably know who I'm thinking of.
Yep.
That's Javonte Williams and Pat Surtain.
Absolutely. And George Paton has put his stamp of approval on these guys by using top 50 picks on both of them, and obviously a top 10 pick on Pat Surtain as well. That shows you how much, actually top 40 picks on these guys. That shows you how much that George Paton really likes these guys. So without a doubt, They're two core players, and we're going to see that because Patrick Surtain is already the Broncos' number one cornerback, and Javonte Williams is going to be the Broncos' number one lead running back next year.
So where does Ronald Darby rank in this?
He's not a core guy.
Yeah, I mean, you gave him a big contract, yes, and he's going to be around for probably the next 2 years, but I think he's on the other side of this line.
He is, because it doesn't mean if you sign a player, he's automatically a core guy. You're going to have to sign players, and you're going to have to sign players for, semi-big contracts, which is kind of what Ronald Darby got. But he's not a core guy. He's not a guy that you say, I can't see him not being here.
Yeah. We'll figure out if they regard any inside linebackers as core guys based over the next few of what they do the next few months. I don't think any of them are core guys.
They're not, and Mace, their contracts are going to reflect that. They're not going to sign Kenny Young, Alexander Johnson, and Josie Jewell. I don't think they're going to sign all three. They're going to sign one or two of those guys, but whoever they sign, I think it's going to be probably for a prove-it deal, a one-year thing, or
1 year, $6 million.
I could see Kenny Young getting 3 years, $15 million, something like that, but that means you're a starter. It doesn't mean you're a core player. So I agree. No core players at inside backer.
So let's go to the outside linebackers, and I think that brings us to the most interesting discussion. And I think the one that we've both been waiting to talk about here. Do you regard Bradley Chubb as a core guy?
The Broncos really, really want him to be a core guy.
They're trying to make him into a core guy.
They're
trying to make
darndest.
Bradley Chubb core guy happen.
Yep, they are. But now, no.
Thanks, Kale.
No, he's not.
He's not, and unfortunately, it starts with the old cliche, the best ability is availability. And now, as we sit here, there have been 58 possible games for Bradley Chubb in his career, and he has missed 23. And 20 of the 35 games that he has played were the first 20 games of his career. So since week 5 of the 2019 season, he has missed more games than he's played, and he's probably going to miss at least one more because while he is practicing this week, Vic Fangio said yesterday they're going to be conservative with him and how they bring him back. So I don't expect Chubb out there this week. I think it's probably touch and go that he's even out there next week against Kansas City.
And then whenever he's back, and I agree, I think we're still many weeks away. Whenever he's back, I expect there to be an acclimation time for him to come back. I don't expect 1 sack a game Bradley Chubb to be right there. Now, maybe he has a couple of sacks in a game, but then I expect some slow play as well. And this is just, it's such a bummer. When Vic Fangio got here, Mace, he clearly liked and valued Bradley Chubb more than Von Miller. Remember, this is when Von Miller was still racking up 14 sacks, I think, the season before Vic got here. So Von was showing a lot, and Vic said, Bradley Chubb's better than him. George Paton, he wanted to sign Bradley Chubb right when he got here. Courtland Sutton and Bradley Chubb were the two guys that he was pointing to about working out contract extensions. Broncos are so far away from a contract extension with Bradley Chubb right now. So far away. And they have the 5th-year option next year, which they're on the hook for.
Franchise tag beyond that.
Exactly. So
Chubb's got to, at this point, Chubb's got to prove a lot.
He does.
And it's because of it's not because he's not a good enough player. It's because of the health.
And the Broncos can make him a core guy right now, but they're not going to because he's not.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer. You can't have a top 5 pick, especially at a non-quarterback position, not be a core guy. And unfortunately, that's what Bradley Chubb is right now.
Yeah. And the fact that he did come to Denver with an injury history. Did come to Denver with an ACL tear in his past, and now he's had another ACL tear, and now he's having the issues this year. It's at a point where can you really rationalize a huge multi-year deal that being a core edge would merit?
No.
I don't think you can.
No. In fact, Mesa, I spoke a little bit on the side with George Paton yesterday, and one of the things that he said was with Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, the risk is now on the Broncos, but for injury purposes because they paid him that money. Right now, the Broncos, they can't be confident in putting that type of trust and risk in Bradley Chubb.
Right, and it keeps happening over and over again.
Exactly. It's not just one ACL tear like it was with Courtland.
Right. He will have had 2 of the last 3 seasons in which he will have missed over half the games in the year.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there was an injury history before, I don't know if you can look at that and say, we're going to give him a big contract. Now, it's not to say that you can't recover and be productive. I mean, I think back to Thomas Davis in Carolina, who managed to keep playing despite going through 3 ACL tears over his career. But Davis is the exception. For whatever reason, Thomas Davis, who now is moonlighting as a game day photographer for the Panthers,
how about
in his retirement, is a unicorn. I don't know that Bradley Chubb is going to work out the same way as Thomas Davis did, overcoming that sort of injury history.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked about safeties. Kareem Jackson, no. I mean, they cut him already this year.
Yeah, and he's good for this year, and he's a good locker room presence. But everything is pointing toward Caden Stearns being the starter next year.
Exactly.
And then Jamar Johnson being the third man in.
Yep.
I mean, basically, you can see a scenario where Johnson replaces Stearns as the 6th defensive back, and Stearns becomes a starter.
100%.
It seems like it's trending that way.
100%. So there it is for the defensive mace. Let's jump into the offensive side of the ball. After I tell you about sexy pizza and
sexy time,
you talked about the tailgates that we have on game day. Sexy Pizza and Breckenridge Brewery fuel us, and Sexy Pizza is so good. I believe it was Jock said he crushed 8 slices of Sexy Pizza.
That's almost
at the
a whole
last tailgate.
pizza.
It is. They just keep bringing us the delicious warm pizza, hot pizza, I should say. But also, if you're not the tailgate, you can check out one of their great locations in the Denver area. You can go to sexypizza.com to find out more about the company, more about exactly where their pizza places are. And Mace, you can also get one of their philanthropies, which is awesome. It's a portion of every one of their pizzas goes to the 5 specialty organizations in the area. So it's a really cool way to have delicious pizza and also support great causes. Sexy Pizza does it right, Mace. They absolutely do it right. So if you want to get some of this Sexy Pizza, go to sexypizza.com to find out more. And of course, visit one of their locations in the Denver area.
And also, they're opening a location down in Trinidad.
They are.
As well. So check that out if you're in southern Colorado. Also, check out Hassel Cattle Company. That damn good beef. They call it the blue collar Wagyu because the best damn Wagyu that any man or woman can afford. And yeah, you're thinking about turkey this week. But does anyone really like turkey?
No. No
turkey is, to me, turkey is just okay unless it's smoked. So let's say you don't have a smoker. Say you only have a grill. You're living in an apartment or a condo. You can't have a big smoker. You've got a little grill. Well, grilled turkey, but grilled beef, on the other hand, that is primo. So let's say you're having that Thanksgiving in your condo, in your apartment. You've got your grill on the balcony, or you've got an electric grill there in your kitchen, and you still want to make a great Thanksgiving meal. Forget about roasting the turkey. Get out the grill and get some of that beef from Hassel Cattle Company. Have some of those fillets, those New York strips, or hey, maybe you just want to do some amazing burgers. So get some of the ground beef from Hassel Cattle Company. It is all Wagyu beef. And guess what? You can get 15% off your entire purchase by using the code DNVR15 at checkout. So go to HassellCattleCompany.com. That's HASSELL CattleCompany.com. Use the code DNVR15. Get 15% off. And oh, by the way, if you get to $200, and if you're having some people over, you probably will want to get to $200. You can get free shipping on that. And maybe you're going to miss Thanksgiving, no problem. You're going to have Christmas coming up, holiday meals. Maybe you're doing something big for Festivus on December 23rd. Why do the traditional? Just go get your guests some beef from Hassel Cattle Company. Grill those fillets, grill those New York strips, and we promise you, if they are a carnivore, they're going to be satisfied. So check out HassellCattleCompany.com, Hassell cattlecompany.com. Use the code DNVR15 for 15% off.
You need your teeth to eat Hassell and to eat sexy pizza, and you need to keep those teeth clean and healthy and happy, and our friends over at Green Mountain Dental do just that. And why don't you go check them out? Because, Mace, not only are they part of our DNVR family, not only do they treat you like family, but as a good family member, they give you a gift when you come and schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam with them over at Green Mountain Dental. They'll hand you over a free Sonicare toothbrush. Free Sonicare toothbrush, something you use every single day. You're going to the dentist twice a year anyway, so might as well check out our friends over at Green Mountain Dental. They're only a 15-minute drive from downtown Denver. They support us, and supporting our partners is supporting us as well. So make sure to check them out. Schedule that cleaning, x-ray, and exam, and you will be hooked up with a free Sonicare toothbrush over at Green Mountain Dental.
By the way, did you see the news earlier this hour? Phillip Lindsay no longer with the Houston Texans.
Yes, and
letting him go.
Boy, how about George Paton getting crushed for that move when he let him go? One of his probably his boldest move that he made is at that time as the general manager of the Denver Broncos. Got crushed for it, buried for it, and it turned out to be the right move because the Broncos were then able to go get Javonte Williams in the draft. Phillip Lindsay, the Texans have been awful. Phillip Lindsay is just straight up been awful, Mace. I mean, look at what happened with Phillip Lindsay this year. He's averaging, 2.6 yards per carry?
His per carry average, by the way, in his career has gone from 5.4 as a rookie to 4.5 in year 2, 4.3 in year 3, and 2.6 this year.
Yep.
That is a bad sign.
And so you say, well, it's the Texans. Mace, the rest of the running backs in Houston have not been good, but he's been the worst. And in fact, you look at this last game, and shout out to my guy Lou who sent me this. Rex Burkhead averaged 2.2 yards per carry, had 18 carries. Taylor had 6 carries for 4.7 yards. Johnson had 13 carries for 1.4 yards per carry. None of those are inspiring, but they're all touching the ball. Phillip Lindsay, 1 carry for -3 yards.
Yeah, I mean, they're all, look, the entire group is struggling. It's big names that have done nothing. Per carry average this year, Mark Ingram 3.2, David Johnson 3.0, Rex Burkhead 2.8, Phillip Lindsay 2.6.
That's what I'm saying.
They're all struggling right now.
He wasn't even able to break out there, and I know this is probably upsetting everyone, but my point to this is the Broncos actually made a good decision when they did that, because like you said, Mace, he's been trending in the wrong direction. I hope Phil gets hooked up with the Pats. I hope Phil gets hooked up with the Buffalo Bills and finds a lot of success. I think all of us are going to be cheering for that, but he's trending in the wrong direction. He's on a bad team, and he's the worst running back on that bad team. So it just shows you that. And also there's some people, I don't know if joking or not, saying sign Phillip Lindsay. He's not the answer you need.
No. I mean, he's a situational back at this point.
And
the Broncos and Pat Shurmur have not shown that they're situational back type of people. Now, if on the other side of this season you make a change at coach, you make a change at OC, and you've got a Patriots acolyte who believes in heavy situational use of running backs, then by all means he could probably find a place for Phillip Lindsay, but not the way things are structured right now.
Definitely not the way things are structured now. All right, Mace, let's get into the offensive side. We already touched on how Javonte Williams is a core player. Is Melvin Gordon?
No.
Yeah,
he's core for this year, but unless you get him at a discount, you're moving in a different direction after the year. It doesn't look. I could see Melvin Gordon being back, but he's not going to be back on $8 million a year.
You're not a core player as a backup either.
Unless it's like continue to be the 1 and 1A. But the history of George Paton is that even though there have been rep sharing situations that he's been a part of in Minnesota, the preference is if you've got the guy, he's going to be the bell cow unless he gets hurt. Javonte Williams, I think he wants him to be Denver's Dalvin Cook.
Without a doubt. So I agree with you. No one there. We already talked about the wide receivers. Obviously, Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. You hope is one. Now you have a lot of time for Jerry Jeudy to prove that. We talked about tight ends as well. Noah Fant has time to change that. And so let's get to the offensive line, Mace. Garrett Bowles, his contract says he's a core player, so you don't have to worry about that until I think 2 years from now is when you can cut him.
Yeah, he's a core player at this moment. Just the deal says that. But is anybody else on the offensive line a core player?
No,
not yet. Now it's funny. We talked about Lloyd Cushenberry earlier, being somebody that if you go young at quarterback, he might be somebody you look to replace to get a more experienced center who's seen everything. Now, Cushenberry has improved in recent weeks, but we are still a ways out from knowing if he's a core player.
100%.
But you have time. If you keep him, you have a year or two to figure that out and see if he can grow into that role. It's way too early to say that about Quinn Miners as well.
Yep.
Now, could they get there? Absolutely, they could get there. I think the bigger question is, where do we see Dalton Reisner at this point?
Yeah, no, he's not a core player.
And the decision on that is coming up. Now, more promising work in the last couple of weeks. Can he sustain that the rest of the season? So he's somebody that I think you would put the asterisk by, just like you've got it by Draymond Jones and you've got it by Noah Fant. He can get there. He is not there today.
He is not there today. And Mace, that's the most concerning part about this team outside of the quarterback position for me is the offensive line. You have one core player, and the reason he's a core player right now is just because of his contract. I think if you were to look at the way Garrett Bowles has played this year, I don't think you're locking him up to a $17 million per year contract.
Yeah, probably not.
He's been better this year than he was every year up till last year, but he's certainly taken a step back from where he was last year. And then the rest of the offensive line, there are no core players on it. And this was a position that you really hoped last year and this year it was going to continue to take steps in the right direction. You had Mike Munchak. You had significant investments on the offensive line. I mean, Juwan James, that feels like ages ago, yet we know what happened with him. And
3 games.
Just absolutely incredible. So no core players there, and that's why it feels like maybe you use money in that area instead of wide receivers. But I think, Mace, we really went pretty deep on this entire team, and I want to go really deep on these comment sections.
First of all, we have any super chats today? Kale?
We do not. Right. Yes, we did not have any super chats. So let's jump into the comments that people have left on the website. First one coming in from Tom Mercury. He says, even though we have now locked up a receiving core that could be attractive for a free agent quarterback, wouldn't the ownership issues stop those same free agent quarterbacks from wanting to join the Broncos organization?
Not to the same degree. I mean, maybe they'll give them a little bit of pause, but you have an idea that the owner, if the team is for sale, the owner is going to be somebody with a lot of resources. And don't forget, with Aaron Rodgers, he's played now 17 seasons, 14 as a starter, in a place that effectively doesn't have an owner.
Yep.
They've got a CEO in Mark Murphy who handles the day-to-day. But I think Rodgers is comfortable with that. Also, Russell Wilson, he's just been in a situation where for the last few years, it's been trust ownership, even though the person running it on a day-to-day basis, Jeudy Allen, Paul Allen's sister, is certainly has a very deep connection to Paul Allen, obviously, as a sibling, and is kind of engaged in that. Trust seems to be functioning in a more clear manner than what we've seen from the Broncos trust. Things are not as murky as far as what's going to happen with the Seahawks. It's not speeding toward a sale at this point. The Seahawks could kind of continue indefinitely the way they are. So both of them come from situations that have ownership situations that aren't necessarily the ideal. So I don't know if they would rule the Broncos out just because the team is being sold.
I think it's a great question, Tom Mercury, but I think where ownership becomes more of an issue is with general manager and your head coach. I think the Broncos are going to have to do a lot more convincing of a potential new head coach that the ownership situation is okay than a quarterback. The quarterback, as long as this guy's not making a fool of himself and he makes a terrible work environment and players hate it, and as long as the money's there and the resources are there, then it's fine. And what did we just find out? The Broncos just, had $90 million ready to go for Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton. So, no, I actually don't think that's a big issue at all, but I do think it's a great question.
But it is, like you said, for a coach, when they're doing the interviews of the coaching candidates, when you get through the part of they ask you questions and George Paton says, do you have any questions for us? If it's not the first question, it's going to be in the first two. What's the deal with ownership? Who do we expect to own this team by September?
Yep, exactly.
Every coach is going to have that question. And if there are, let's say it's Dan Quinn. If there are multiple teams after Dan Quinn, even though George Paton and Dan Quinn have a relationship dating back over a decade, that's a question that that may give Dan Quinn pause.
Yep.
If he has another potential offer from a team that's got a more stable situation.
Without a doubt. Next one from Aviator Chris says, how would y'all compare Thomas and Sanders' play style and contracts to Sutton and Patrick? I believe, as you said earlier, we got great value for finally pulling the trigger earlier rather than waiting. How would you think Sutton and Patrick will play in PFM's glory days? Keep up the great work. # Broncos
Country.
They'd
be great in Manning's glory days, no doubt.
They would be great. Now, who's a better duo, though?
Well, the interesting thing is that it's different skill sets because Emmanuel Sanders has kind of the speed, quickness that you don't necessarily see from Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton.
Right.
So it's a different dynamic. I think they'd be very successful with Paton, but I also kind of like the contrast in styles of Thomas and Sanders better than the Sutton and Patrick. But the other thing you have to throw in there is you got Jeudy.
Right.
And Jeudy fills in some of those gaps. So I think the bigger question is, would you rather have Thomas Sanders / Welker or Thomas Decker / Welker, or would you rather have Sutton, Patrick, and Jeudy?
Yeah,
that's a fair debate.
And that's just something that, I mean, boy, DT so unbelievably dominant, especially in those Peyton
years. He's the best single
years.
receiver of all of those groups.
So I'm taking DT, and I think when you compare, it's DT or Courtland Sutton. For me, I'm taking DT over Courtland Sutton. Wes was just, I mean, he's the best slot receiver in the game.
You got one good year out of Wes. 2014 wasn't great.
And that's the group I'm choosing. So I am choosing Wes. He's the best slot receiver in the NFL, in NFL's history, in my opinion. And
so
then
you're choosing the group with Decker then in 2013.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll do that, but that's not to put this group down at all by any means. This group is still very good, and contracts are similar in terms of pay. Now, actually, I think these are a little cheaper of deals. The Broncos are getting better value than what they got on Emmanuel, because I think they were paying Emmanuel $11 million, and this is a couple years later.
In the second contract, yeah, but that first contract they gave Emmanuel was
about $5
million a year.
Right.
And remember, they went to him because they didn't feel they could pay both Demarius and Eric Decker.
Right.
So that's why they went to Sanders, and then Sanders, who had been a wide receiver 3 in Pittsburgh, worked his way up to a more prominent role here, and then got the bigger deal by 2016. But it's kind of interesting to look at that dynamic. What is happening here maybe is what would have happened perhaps if let's say they had not signed Welker. Let's say they tried to wring one more year in 2013 out of Brandon Stokely. Instead, Stoke retired. If that's the case, then maybe do they consider re-signing Eric Decker and doing effectively what they did this weekend, with Eric Decker kind of being the Tim Patrick and then Courtland being the Demarius Thomas.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Would have changed a lot for Eric Decker.
It certainly would have.
Because he kind of fell off not long after that.
Yep, absolutely. Alaska Preston says, my boys, a couple of questions for y'all. With Melvin likely gone after the season, does his departure open the door for Phil to return? Phil was supposed to be the lightning to Royce's thunder. I feel like Javonte is the best embodiment of thunder we've seen on the team since C.J. Anderson. With our thunder locked down, does it make sense to bring Phil back to be the flashy second string guy?
Again, I think it depends on who's running the offense.
I think that's a fair point, but Mace, Phillip Lindsay is trending in the right direction. This year, Phillip Lindsay, and I didn't want to say it like this earlier because I know a lot of people love Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay was really bad this year. He was in a bad situation, went to a bad team. The team was not good. There was a lot of things going wrong with the team. But Mace, it's not like he was the best running back on their team. He was the worst running back on a bad team. So, Phil, we had a great time with you. You had an awesome 3 years here, but no, I'm not bringing a guy back that is clearly trending in the wrong direction. That was a bad running back this year. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, again, like I said, I want to see the new coach. If there's a new offensive coordinator next season, it depends. If it's a guy who likes to use back situationally, if it's a coach uses back situationally, then I think he could find a role for Phillip Lindsay. But if it's Pat Shurmur, that's not his MO. He wants a running back who can do all of it. And that's not Phil.
Mike Boone, right now, Mike Boone is your number 2.
Yes.
Draft someone in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round to be that next Mike Boone type of guy.
Plenty of those guys every year.
Who will be trending up in the right direction. He also goes on, but I think it's a fair question. I'm happy you asked Alaska Press. And he says, what is one position on each side of the ball you feel like needs addressed most this offseason? Omitting quarterback. I'd like to see something done at the tackle position. Either one. I like Massey, but his age worries me. Bowles hasn't been bad, but not great. Also, I would like a legit, scary middle inside linebacker brought in. What are your thoughts? Well, at left tackle, Mace, you're stuck with Garrett Bowles. So if you want something to tackle, it's at right tackle.
Yeah, I think let's see where on the defensive side, let's see where things go with Jonathan Cooper the rest of the season and Malik Reed and Bradley Chubb getting back, but I think you might be really looking at edge. Inside linebacker, I think you've found some guys that you can, if you re-sign Kenny Young, you have Baron Browning, I think you're finding some guys you can do fine with, and that's not a core position anyway in the way that edge is, so I'd say edge. Right tackle, we kind of talked about earlier. If you do go young, cost-controlled quarterback, and you're going to have a first-round quarterback who's going to be at like a $4 million a year cap figure, do you say, all right, let's build the wall in front of him? Mm-hmm. So that means right tackle, and like I said, that may mean best experienced center on the market.
Yep,
that's to help that young quarterback along. You can have a young quarterback with a veteran center. You can have a veteran center with a young quarterback. But what you don't want is both. And that's one of the things that got Drew Lock in trouble last year.
Yep.
There should have been, in retrospect, there should have been a veteran center there, not someone who was kind of growing at the same time. Because both were at a relatively low level in terms of identifying things pre-snap. And it showed.
Yeah. Offensive line, just any and all of it. You need to have a huge investment. And then defense. You can really look at every position outside of safety and say they need some investment.
Would you bring back Bryce Callahan?
Man.
Again, best ability is availability. When he's out there, man, he's good.
It has to be a good value. And that's something that, I don't like to just throw out there because good values don't happen all that often. But, yeah, if you get him on a good value and you count on him missing half a season, then sure.
Or tie bonuses to playing time.
Yeah.
Like a $5 million base, and every game he plays above like 9 games, he gets another $500K.
See, I love that.
But you don't see many of those contracts.
My thought for him was 1 year, $5 million. So
okay.
If we want to throw bonuses on top of that, that's fine. He finishes out and says, "God bless. Go DNVR. All you guys, this community, and Iceman. Yes, Iceman, we love you." Next one from Dan Burke says, "Hey guys, so NFL.com did their initial list of coaches under 45 who are rising stars in the league. Last year, Zach Azzani was at the top of the ones to watch list, but wasn't on the list because he exceeds the age threshold. This year, the Broncos coach this year was Christian Parker. What do y'all think about the job Parker is doing? And do you think the Broncos should try to retain him if the coaching staff changes?" For a team that has had a coaching staff that gets criticized often, they've managed to put out 4 co-coordinators since 2017. Studesville, Clint Kubiak, Brandon Staley, and Ronaldo Hill. So should the Broncos try their best to retain an up-and-coming coach like Parker?
I mean, we'll see. I can't kind of judge the job he's doing. We see kind of so little of it on a daily basis. I mean, he's got good material to work with.
He's got great material to work with.
And, Pat Surtain's doing well. Darby's done fine. Safeties overcame their hiccup that they had last month communication-wise, and they're back on track. But how much of it is the result of the talent? How much is the coaching? That is really kind of hard to figure at this point. So, I mean, I don't have any indication that Christian Parker's doing a bad job. I don't have any indication he's doing like a wow, oh my God, he's a head coach of the future job.
Yeah, that would have to be something behind the scenes
Yeah.
where if George Paton really gets that sense that he's crushing. Because what you also have to remember, not only great talent, a top 10 pick with Pat Surtain, the most expensive secondary group, especially the cornerbacks. But what is Ed Donatel? Yeah, he's a defensive coordinator. He's really your secondary coach.
Yes.
And then what's Vic Fangio? A defensive mastermind is what a lot of people say. So, I mean,
And so
Christian
Parker's
Parker's
like
getting all the help he could get.
He's kind of he actually, you could say, maybe the assistant secondary coach, because Ed Donatel works so much with the defensive backs.
Exactly. So for
yeah.
me, if behind the scenes he looks like the truth, then yes, you do keep him. But if you're just basing it off of look at Pat Surtain's development, I mean, the cornerback room has also struggled this year.
And also, I mean, a lot of that is Surtain himself. And that's the other thing. Like, sometimes coaches are along for the ride, and they just happen to have the right personnel. I'm not saying Christian Parker's that guy. But let's face it, Adam Gase, I mean, shouldn't he tithe Peyton Manning about 25% of the money he made as a head coach?
Peyton would like it. People in Denver would like it. It helped Peyton get closer to buying the team.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's a function of having good material to work with. So, yeah, I think the thing we can say about Christian Parker is, haven't heard anything negative, but we don't know at this point.
Yep, exactly. All right, and final one here coming in from Windy City Bronco. He says, apparently Teddy no tackle is sacked on 15% of dropbacks on opening drives. This gets me wondering about scripted plays since clearly whatever is being scripted is not working. Here, how are these scripts constructed? Is it 15 plays run in order no matter what the defense throws at you? Does that third play in the script assume third and short, third and long, or that is second down? Any idea what Shermer might be getting wrong here?
Scripts are not as strict as I think they're presented as being.
Right.
There are audibles in scripts. Look, if you've got 3rd and 13, unless you see a specific look, you're not calling a draw on 3rd and 13, even if, say, the third play of the script says it's going to be a draw here. You're only calling that if there's a look. Otherwise, you're going in another direction. So there is a certain amount of flexibility that comes with it. Although, that being said, being sacked on 15% of dropbacks and opening drives, that is something that's a concern, and it does put you behind schedule. So what's going on here? Is it protection bust? Is it Bridgewater holding the ball too long? I mean, I know the thing is, sacks in general over the course of a season, they're probably half on the quarterback, half on the line. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I learned years ago from a few upset offensive linemen. I wouldn't say upset, not like they were yelling.
When they were getting all the blame.
Yes, and they didn't, and I can credit some guys. I would actually he wasn't upset, but two guys that I would kind of credit with kind of teaching me about kind of the shared responsibility of a sack were Ryan Coyle and Jordan Gross, covering them in Carolina on the offensive line, and really kind of opening my eyes to which party was responsible for what.
Right.
And it is, and look, a fair amount of Teddy's sacks, yeah, they're on Teddy.
Yep.
No doubt. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. Some of Drew's sacks last year, they were on Drew.
Yep.
That's how these things work.
Yep. Exactly. And Mace, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I also enjoy the people over at Green Mountain Dental, so check them out. Give them a call and schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam to get hooked up with a free Sonicare toothbrush. That's all you have to do. Schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, and you'll get hooked up with a free Sonicare toothbrush from our friends over at Green Mountain Dental. We'd also really appreciate it if you hopped over and became a member. You can leave a comment, have those comments read here exclusively, maybe even give it as a Black Friday present to one of your friends or family members. And for Andrew Mason, I'm Zach Stevens. That'll do it for us. Thank you all so much for rolling with us today. We really appreciate every single one of you. And don't worry, we'll be back with our picks and more Broncos talk tomorrow and Thursday. But for now, that'll do it. Thank you all so much for tuning in.